Hello and welcome to the Angerati studio here at EMART. I'm joined now by Daniel Wragge, who's the Head of Political and Regulatory Affairs at EEX. I hope I've got all of that right. Daniel, welcome. Thanks for making the time. Daniel, just before we start, can you, just to put sort of what we're going to talk about in context, Head of Political and Regulatory Affairs, what is it that you do, and just give us a bit of background about, where you're coming from.
Yes, certainly. It's a pretty long title, so I think it needs some explanation. It has two aspects. The first one is political. So what I'm doing, I'm in contact with politicians, with regulators, with the Commission, for instance, both on a national basis as well as on a European. So I'm based in Brussels, and I'm taking all chances to meet these people and to get involved in the political process, to get involved in the regulation. That's number one. And the second point is regulatory affairs. So once there is a regulation, once there is a new policy, it has to be implemented. And it needs people internally who kind of guide or who give guidance on what to do from an IT side, from a legal side, and so on. So my team is also taking part in these internal implementation processes, and so we thought we bring these two aspects together. So the communication.
Because they are complementary.
Exactly, exactly. So it's both ways. You communicate to the outside world, while at the same time you communicate internally and you implement internally. So we are really in between these two.
And so you're kind of in the thick of it in Brussels as well. So that kind of puts you in a good position to kind of start talking about some of the issues that, when I was looking at the EMART conference and I was looking at all the things that are being discussed, and some of the things that kind of jumped out at me was like the need for some sort of reform around the support schemes that are out there, and almost every third session it's almost like the industry is questioning itself, and what are the role of what's the role of energy exchanges and things like that. So let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's split that into two things. Why is there a need to reform some of the support schemes that are out there?
Because we have seen a considerable growth in renewables over the last years, and it's further growing. I mean, the goal for 2030 is 27% renewables in the market, and I think the question is valuable. How are you going to deal with these volumes? How do you integrate them into the market? I think, though, it's very important to notice that we are not starting from scratch here. Sometimes I read that we need a new market design, that we need a revolution in the sector. I don't think so. I think we have come quite far already. So when it comes about the future, we would talk about the energy market 2.0, but it's not that we start from 0.5. I would say we are already 1.8
or something like that. Yeah.
There's more which is needed, and we are, as an exchange, are constantly working on it. We are offering new markets, new products. We improve what we have, but the basis is there, and on this basis we can build up. I think that's an important message. It's not that we need everything new.
Right, and that's always a dangerous thing, ripping everything up and starting again.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need to do that, but oftentimes that's a tough road to go down. So if you can bring some of the things out, what do you think, what are the roles of the energy exchanges within this renewable-centric ecosystem that we're building?
Yeah, I think one central element of every exchange is that we treat our customers all the same. So we have anonymous, transparent trading at the exchange. And so that means that all our customers also should be exposed to the same risks and chances. And for the moment being, renewables are not treated as other conventional power plants or other producers. So what we need is really to find a way to shape and to kind of find ways how these renewables can be better integrated into the market. And so that is why we are developing new products. One product we have just recently launched is the so-called Cap Future. I won't bore you with details, but to be very broad, it's an insurance. It's an insurance against high prices. So what we see is that the trading becomes more and more short-term, intraday, so you can trade until 45 minutes before delivery. And you see in this very short period high prices, you see volatility. So you need a tool to hedge yourself against these very short-term prices. And this is the new Cap Future. So Renewables which are exposed, and that is a condition, renewables which are exposed to full market risk will need such instruments in the future in order to hedge themselves against such a situation.
Yeah, so what you're saying, so there are I'm paraphrasing your thing, but I'm trying to understand the thing as well. So what you're saying is there's a need for a number of products that will form the basis of us being able to integrate or treat renewables without some of the traditional subsidies that we've used.
Exactly. I think renewables will always, or maybe not always, but for a long time we will see subsidies for renewables. It's not that we are against subsidies, but these subsidies should be handled in a way that these renewables are still able to participate in the market. The times of produce and forget should be over. So there should be an incentive to take part in the market. And once you have that incentive, once you are exposed to high prices, so what is a high price? A high price is a situation where you have no sun and no wind. And the renewable producer in that moment has to pay a high price because he has to buy the energy he's not able to deliver. So in that moment he will be looking forward for something.
And that's where you need products like yours, which
exactly, which hedge yourself against. So you still have to pay that amount of money at the physical side. You still have to buy the power, but at the same time you are hedged against it on the financial side. So that's how we think the future will look like.
And on that note, you've kind of neatly segued me into the next phase of what I wanted to talk about, is like, how do we start adapting market design for increasing share of renewables? Because there's one of the things that, we've covered a lot on my network anyway, where, we fundamentally believe that while I agree with you in the short term subsidies for renewables are needed, but we need to start putting out a more parallel track of phasing out those subsidies. You can't do it overnight,
yes.
But then also getting the market design right so that we further pull renewables in standing on their own 2 feet. So what, in your view, does that look like? I mean, you've articulated one thing, okay, that's one product about hedging against high market price, but what are some of the other things we need to look at?
I think one very important element of the whole debate is that we accept high prices, that we accept price peaks, and it has been a political discussion, I think, in every single member state. Are politicians going to intervene if they see that there are high prices at wholesale markets? I always asked, why is that question? Because this wholesale market price, high peak there, will not have any influence on the end consumer.
Yeah.
Because the end consumer, he pays the average. But nevertheless, there seems to be the concern that there will be someone who intervenes to kind of restricts the price. So it's really important, and we see that in the past, that there is a strong confirmation by some that they will not intervene. So there had been a declaration by 12 countries before the summer, 12 countries in the center of Europe, which said we're not going to intervene, Germany, France and others. And recently in Germany we have seen the draft of the new energy market law, which you find in paragraph 1 that there will be no interference into the price signal. So I think this is number one. Once you trust, once you think that markets will be accepted, that market prices will accept it, products like I just explained, such a capped future will work. If you always assume that prices will be cut, you will never buy such a hedging product.
And that is just one of the fundamentals of making a market work. You need that freedom and that,
yes.
that removal from political interference. I mean, why do you think that, because I get it, so if there's a spike in 1 hour or half an hour,
yeah.
I don't want to belittle it, but so what? It doesn't mean I suddenly get landed with a huge utility bill the next day. It doesn't come to me. But why do you feel there's this lack of understanding from our political masters, for want of a better word, about really letting this energy market be a market?
I think it's human behavior. You don't know what the future will look like. So you have that feeling that you would like to shape it as much as you can, in a way that you kind of install new mechanisms which ensure that you have exactly the situation you would like to see. But by that, you kind of lose the chance or don't take the chance in order to let the market decide and to find the most efficient solutions. So it's about trusting the market, and then it's about trusting that the market will come up with the right solutions. And again, we as an exchange, we think that the current framework enables us to deliver these solutions. But once there is a kind of regulation, we are not able to cover these anymore, and we are not able to provide these solutions. So
you can't have
this
your
is
cake
rather
and eat it,
philosophical
right?
discussion then.
Yeah. So do you think that in terms of moving the market forward again, a lot of commentators that I've talked to, not necessarily at this event, have also said that we need to treat all these renewable sources somewhat differently. Wind needs different products to solar and things like that. Do you see that as well, or would you disagree with that point?
Maybe not disagree, but in the end, electricity is electricity. So they need to be treated the same. They should apply the same rules and so other. But of course, the fundamental situation has changed. I give you an example. In the old days, we had price peaks during lunchtime. Now we often see very low prices because the sun is shining the most during lunchtime. So the reality changes, and of course you can think of how to adapt to that, and how do you kind of shape products which then make these hours, for instance, tradable. And I think that's what we did, and with that capped future, for instance, and other products as well, which are in the pipeline. So it's not about different products to different for different commodities or for different sources of energy. It's rather products which are shaped to the new fundamental situation as such.
And so as we're coming to the end of the time here, one of the other things I've noticed on the agendas or certainly in the conversations I'm having is there seems to be a broad move towards having some sort of standardization, and we talk about a European market. Yes. And so on. But within that, how do you see the move, and you may well answer, look, it's going to happen, don't worry about it, the move towards reconciling sort of the different market designs that are out there into sort of like either an internal market or one market?
That's a big question of the upcoming years. I think we need harmonization, definitely, because the market's already highly linked today. We have market coupling, so it's not possible to make national decisions. They all will have a direct impact on the neighbors and beyond. So you have to find a way how to harmonize, or at least to find a way how these different schemes work together in a harmonized way. And there I'm looking forward to the proposed solutions which are on the table, but it will not be easy.
It's not going to happen overnight. Do you think, though, just as a final word, there is a belief and an understanding that in this harmonization and in this greater coupling, we are actually more likely to build resilience than if we have, fragmented approaches?
Of course. I think energy security is an important topic, and you have to define it on a regional level. And I think it's done today already, but we need that approach more because it reflects reality. So there's nothing you can escape, and I think it's something to accept, and then you have to build the market. You have to kind of then trust the market that it delivers in times where you have problems.
Perfect. And Daniel, on that note, we must leave it. Thank you for joining us, and thank you as well for watching. Sorry for all the clattering in the background. It's lunchtime and we're live, so there you go. One of the dangers of our profession. But thanks again, Daniel.
Thank you.